Doctrine spreads fast. Fast becomes mandatory. The Identity Doctrine, in theaters now.
A major American university is now teaching students that whiteness is a pandemic. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration. Those are their words on their official website. University of Minnesota is telling white parents they must re-educate themselves and their children to cure what they call a radical infection that starts at birth. Your tax dollars are actually funding this. The National Institute of Mental Health helped pay for it. What's buried in this program will make you question everything you thought you knew about what's happening inside American higher education. Now, here's what's at stake. This is not some fringe professor ranting on social media. This is official university programming. Hosted by the Culture and Family Lab at the University of Minnesota Institute of Child Development. They have a page on their website titled Whiteness, the Whiteness Pandemic. It claims white families socialize children into racism from birth. It says parents must halt and reverse their own culture through anti-racist self-re-education. It links to materials from Ibram Kendi and Robin DiAngelo, and it tells families to join Black Lives Matter as part of the cure. This is taxpayer-funded ideological warfare aimed directly at American families and American children. If this stands at every public university, the country will follow. The classroom becomes the indoctrination center, and parents become the enemy. And some breaking news: while your tax dollars fund programs calling American families a disease, the Trump administration has just issued an executive order that is strengthening our nation. It's Executive Order 14241. The White House naming the Palmer Project in Alaska as critical to America's mineral independence. Now, Vizsla Copper has acquired that project, an estimated $3.5 billion in-ground value, containing copper and zinc and silver that are vital for our military and energy grid. Now, they're led by the same team that propelled Vizsla Silver to a $1 billion valuation. When other Alaskan miners got government backing, shares shot up over 200%. Now, the Palmer Project was just named in the government's report, and the market hasn't even priced it in yet. Vizsla Copper trades domestically under ticker VCUFF. You can find out more by going to the link in the description. But here's where it gets worse. This is not isolated. Netflix paid Ibram Kendi to produce a documentary condemning whiteness. Teachers in Michigan were forced to take assessments measuring their level of whiteness. Yeah, TikTok influencers claiming there's nothing to be proud of in being white, and that being pro-white equals being pro-violence. The University of Minnesota program tells parents that if they were socialized into whiteness, it's not their fault. But as adults, it's now their responsibility to self-reflect, re-educate, and engage in courageous anti-racist parenting. This is a coordinated campaign to reconstruct the American family from the inside out. Here it is from the libs of TikTok. University of Minnesota has a page on their website titled The Whiteness Pandemic, claiming white people have power and privilege and want to push anti-racism on their children. Also want you to join BLM. The Whiteness Pandemic at the University of Minnesota Culture and Family Lab. Practical resources for self-reflection to develop a healthy white racial identity. What is the whiteness pandemic? Well, shall we investigate a little bit further? Racism is an epidemic, according to the CDC in 2021, that can be considered a pandemic given its large cross-national proportion and spread. However, there is another pandemic, the whiteness pandemic. Whiteness refers to culture, not biology. The centuries-old culture of whiteness features colorblindness, passivity, and white fragility, which are all covert expressions of racism, common in the United States. Naming the whiteness pandemic shifts our gaze from the victims and effects of racism onto the systems that perpetrate and perpetuate racism, starting with the family system. I know it's hard for you to see. Maybe I'll try to get it a little closer for you here. At birth, it's at the bottom. At birth, young children growing up in white families begin to be socialized into the culture of whiteness, making the family system one of the most powerful systems involved in systemic racism. If you were born or raised in the United States, you have grown up in the whiteness pandemic at the top there. And you can play a role in halting and reversing this pandemic, especially if you are white, because of the power and privilege you hold in this racialized society. Who writes this shit? I can't even believe that's on a university website. Oh, I think we may have found out who wrote it. University of Minnesota pushing the culture family lab. The professor behind the paper claims white parents need to re-educate. Is this the professor here? Institute of Child Development, driven to discover. Is this her? Man, she must have been treated poorly as a child or something. I don't know what's going on, but she got a lot of hate. How about we all just get along? Can we just do that? Live in harmony, love your neighbor, keep it simple. Just crack open the Bible, read some Proverbs, read some gospel. Let that soak in a little bit. But no, you can't read those books. Diversity means no white countries. Diversity means no white cities. Diversity means no white neighborhoods. Diversity means no white people. Pretty true. Sarah Marshall Perry. We, defending again, discovered that U of Minnesota's warning against whiteness pandemic, providing resources on how to halt and reverse the issue, among other insanities. The family system, one of the most powerful systems involved. Tuition is paying for this. Jonathan Turley, weighing in, says the University of Minnesota, where'd it go? Website moving from woke to delirious insomnia in a website message for people to fight the pandemic of whiteness. If you were socialized into the culture of whiteness, it's not your fault, but you have a responsibility now. Over here in Michigan, too. Look at this. Insurrection Barbie. This is back in September. Teachers in Michigan were forced to take tests to assess their level of whiteness.
Now coming forward. I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Teachers in Michigan were allegedly forced to take tests assessing their level of whiteness. According to a whistleblower who was a public school teacher for 31 years in Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Mitten state, the testing was put in place by Democrat policies. She's now coming forward, accusing the state of racial profiling and taking part in ideological overreach. The tests were allegedly put in place to handle academic and behavioral struggles with black students, suggesting that the teacher's race was a factor in how the black students behaved. Teachers were reportedly told to stand in a circle and publicly rate their level of whiteness based on the test results. The exercise was meant to correlate how white a teacher was with their effectiveness in managing diverse classrooms, especially when it came to discipline referrals and student performance. The veteran teacher said that she had a higher rate of discipline referrals for black students in lower level math classes, which was criticized by the school, and she was told to reduce detentions and tardy referrals for certain racial groups. Administrators allegedly said that tardiness was culturally acceptable for some students, implying that disciplinary standards should vary by race. Because she couldn't handle the racially charged and degrading exercise, in her words, she resigned. frustrated that her effectiveness as a teacher was based on racial identity rather than merit. The Michigan's Department of Education or local school districts have yet to release a public statement affirming or denying the teacher's claims. In Dallas.
Oh, man. Do not send your kids to any public school institution. Kevin Blue writes, whiteness functions by establishing whiteness as a default norm, which grants certain advantages to white people while reinforcing racial hierarchies and contributing to the systematic disadvantage of black people.
Higher structure and origin of whiteness is white fragility operates in such a way that whiteness as a concept is as strong as polystyrene. If you criticize whiteness, it falls apart and attacks you because the entire structure and origin of whiteness is rooted in the oppression of other people. Whiteness as a presence is cannibalistic in its nature. It steals, it colonizes, and it victimizes itself to maintain its status as both victim and oppressor. And if you want to see white supremacy in action, observe white women. That's all I'm going to say for now. White fragility operates in such a way.
What about all those white women that are going to all your rallies, though? Netflix paid Ibram Kendi to make a documentary condemning whiteness. Good God.
Personal. I don't think white people worldwide have really reckoned with how much their own personal identity is shaped by constructions of whiteness, and how much that construction of whiteness prevents white people from connecting to humanity. And of that, I don't think...
These people spend way too much time worrying about white suburban people. This TikTok influencer is out here claiming there's nothing to be proud of in being white, that being pro-white somehow equals being pro-violence, and even pushing the idea there's something inherently wrong with whiteness. It's a white guy. Pro-human.
I've been seeing white people pop up on one of my videos that's come back around for some reason, talking about, I'm proud to be white. What the fuck are you proud of? This idea of being pro-white is pro-violence. That's it. There's no identity in whiteness outside of violence. You're either pro-violence or you're pro-human. You're pro-violence or you're pro-humanity. Especially right now, in this time of open, overt, violent white supremacy, sitting here trying to argue with me about how you're pro-white or some stupid shit like that. You're just pro-violence. And then you got the other end of the spectrum that's like, oh, boo-hoo, I hate being a white person, this and that. Yeah, because you can see there's something inherently wrong with whiteness. Well, other people can say, like, black power or brown pride.
Oh, my God, shut up, dude. I don't know, man. Where is this guy getting indoctrinated from? Oh, probably the University of Minnesota. Oh, man. The whiteness pandemic. It's all over. Oh, here we have it. Here she is. This is the University of Minnesota. This is the professor. We found her. Oh.
Or first, we posit that there is a whiteness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this begins in the family system where young children are social.
Okay, look, there she is. Dr. Gail Ferguson, Culture and Family Life.
We posit that there is a whiteness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this begins in the family system where young children are socialized into the culture of whiteness within white families. Our first recommendation is to remember that the whiteness pandemic is a pandemic. If you were born and raised in the United States, especially in a white family, then you've been raised in the pandemic, and you can play a role in halting and reversing this pandemic. We have two specific recommendations to that end. The first is for white parents to invest time in their own racial identity development through joining an organization like Showing Up for Racial Justice or your local BLM chapter. We posit that there is a whiteness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this begins in the family system.
These people are teaching your kids. And here's the gut punch. This program was funded in part by the National Institute of Mental Health, a federal agency. Yes, your tax dollars built this. Watchdogs say this is DEI extremism repackaged to evade President Trump's crackdown on taxpayer-funded indoctrination. Parents, they call the program divisive and abusive. One says, bluntly, anti-whiteness is the real pandemic. The only cure is to stop the madness before it rewrites an entire generation. University of Minnesota has just declared war on American families. The question is, will anyone fight back? Well, we're trying. Why does this story matter? Because it exposes the end game of the radical left, redefining American identity itself. A public university now teaching that white families are incubators of systemic racism, that children are infected with whiteness from birth, and that parents must undergo ideological re-education using materials from activists who've made millions demonizing half of the country. This is not education. This is cultural demolition funded by taxpayers and backed by federal grants. The University of Minnesota's Whiteness Pandemic program is a test case. If it succeeds, it spreads. Every public school, every daycare, every after-school program becomes a target for this ideology. And the American family, the foundation of our society, of human life, becomes the enemy of the state. President Trump's executive orders crack down on DEI, but this program proves the Hydra has many heads. Cut one off and another one grows back with a new name. So here's my question. Should federal funding be stripped from universities promoting anti-white ideology? Yes or no? Sound off below. And you can support our work here by visiting our merch shop in the description.